Okay, so we already have some basic template there. I already worked on the design a little bit, so we can save some time there. And let's get right into it, okay? So to begin with, we are going to deploy or to complete this login page, okay? So as you can see, I divided this project in 2 pages because I didn't want to have all the code on just one page. And the way I thought about this is I will have 2 different pages. On the index, I have 2 screens, the login page and the create account page. So there are 2 sections. Let me show them to you in the code. So this is the index file, and as you can see, I have one section that says login and another section that says create account. Okay, and you already have a little bit of code there to start with. Okay, so by default, I am showing the div, the section with ID login, and I am hiding this create account section. Okay, and then how do you move across screens on one page? We already did that, but let me show you the way I thought about this to have a little bit less code and to make it more extendable for later on. So the way I did it was anytime I want to change from one screen to another, I just, to the clicking element, for example, this create account text, which is this one that you can see here, I added the class change section, okay? And this allows me to just listen to the click on any item with class change section, okay? And I also tell it with a data attribute. In this case, I type data go to, and I write here the ID of the div or the element or the section in this case that I want to show, okay? So as you can see, this ID matches this ID, okay? So the only thing I do is just hide all the sections because I don't know which section I was showing to the user right now. So I just hide all of them, okay? And then I just grab that data attribute that I had, that data go to, and I use it as a selector for fading in that section, okay? So that allows me to, with just a couple of lines of code, have full navigation between screens on my page as I need to. So if I click here, I fade out that one and fade in the other section. And then on the other section, on this one, if I want to go back to the other section, I just need something with the class change section, okay, and the data go to attribute, right? So that allows me to move interchangeably between sections without any hassle at all, okay? So if I click here on go to login, I will go back to the login page, okay? So let's first create an account here, and the way I'm gonna do this is I will have a variable saved in local storage to control the number of users I have, because I want to have the ability to have several users, okay? So I will have a variable called .users, okay? And this will begin in 0, but then when I create the first user, I will just add one to this one, so this will be 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how many users I have created, okay? Then I will use that variable to create my users. So if .users is 1 or 0 and I am creating a new user, I'm expecting to create user 1 with some attributes. I don't know, the username, the password, and maybe the name or any information you want to store from this user. So this number, I'm gonna grab it from this variable here, okay? So the first time I create a new user, I will increase that one and then read it and use it here. The next time I create a second user, I will increase this one and create a second user based on that value, okay? And then I will do the same for the sprinklers, okay? So I will have something like .sprinklers. At the beginning, this should be 0 because I haven't created a sprinkler at all. And then I will use this to create a sprinkler 1. And this will have something like the owner, who's the owner of this sprinkler, maybe the status, the type, the location, I don't know, whatever you need to, okay? And so on. So that's the idea behind this. So let's get right into it. I'm on the index page, and as you can see, I already have some code here. For example, I have a variable named logged in user because I want to keep track of which user is logged in. Okay. This is the change sections that we already talked about, and then let's use the create new account. Okay. So this button, this create new account button, fires this function. Okay. So here we would need to create a new user. So the way I'm going to do it is, as I told you here, check the total of users. At the beginning, we should also check if that variable, .user, I think I name it, exists. Okay. So you could do something like if store get .user equals null. That means it doesn't exist yet, so we need to create it, right? Store.set .user, and we are going to initiate it in 0, okay? Because there are not users yet, right? Otherwise, it means that this variable has been already created or updated somewhere in the code, okay? So that's all I need right now. So when I create a new account, I can rest assured that this variable already exists. Either it's a 0 or some other value, okay? So first, I have to increment .users. So store set .user, and the value should be the value that it used to have plus 1, right? So I just read the value and add 1 to it, okay? So whenever I click this button, I will be increasing that variable by 1. And then I will use that value, as I told you here.
But why I use the get?
Yeah, because I want to read the value it used to have. So at the beginning it was a 0, but then later on, if I create a new user, this already has a value of 1, and I want to increment it to 2. Okay, so I have to read the last value it used to have and then increment that value by 1. Okay? And then I'm going to use that value here for creating the new user. So I have to somehow append that value here and then just read the values from the inputs that the user typed here. Okay? So let's do all that. Next thing, create the user. So something like store set user hyphen, and then here I'm concatenating this value, right? So just the store get user, something like this. Okay, so this will be either user 1, and the next time this will point to user 2, and then user 3, and so on. Okay, and then a comma, some curly braces, and here all the values I want to save. So for example, I want to save the name. Where do I get the name? From this input, right? So let's just check that input, which is this one, and it has an ID of create name. Okay, so the name will be something like look for something with the ID create name and get its value, right? Then I need a comma. I will duplicate this 3 times because I also want to save the username. And let's check where I'm storing the username. Create username. Okay, so I have here create username. And then I also want the password. The password is stored here in create pwd. Okay. Yeah, so this is name. Yeah, sorry. This is the name, then the username, which is create username, thanks. Then the password, which is pwd, right? And I don't think I need anything else. That's all I need right now, so I will erase this value. I also need to erase this comma here, right? So something like this.
Don't you have to create the password too to check?
Well, I am checking the password here. The thing that I am still missing is the validation, right? And I am not going to do it here because of the short time I have, but of course you should validate first that you have these values filled up. then these passwords match, right? The password and the retype password, okay? And lastly, if that username exists already or not, okay? So that's the validation you will need to do. I will just write something like to do validate that all the fields are filled up, validate that the passwords match, and lastly validate that the username does not exist, right? So this is like a to-do list that you still need to finish or end up, and I hope you include this kind of validation in your projects, okay? For now, let's just assume that the user is typing everything correctly, okay? So that means by now this should allow us to create new users. Let's try that out. So I will save this, refresh this. As always, it's a good idea to clear the console, to clear the local storage, sorry. So store clear. As you can see, I don't have anything else on the store. Okay, so it's empty. Now let's try that out. Create account. I will just type some A values there and create account. Now, I am missing one of the basic principles of Don Norman, right? Which is visibility of system status. Although I am saving the data, I'm not giving feedback to the user on any way. So probably the user will just knock this button several times before realizing that nothing is happening, right? That's what you normally do. If nothing happens, you just click on it again, then a few more times, and then yeah, you try to do something different. Let's inspect the variables here. So that means we should already have some .users, right? So let's try to get that. Store get .user. This should be 1, right? So it's not working. Why not? Let's try that out. It should be at the beginning. It should be 0, right? .user store get. Why not? Yeah, now it's working. I forgot to refresh the web page, I think. Now create account. Just one A. I'm gonna click once here. So this should be 1 right now. Okay. That means we should already have user 1. Okay. And it's called user, not user, user. Okay, and as you can see, it already has the correct values on it. If I click again on this, I am increasing this value, right? So now store.user should be 2, and I have 2 users, user 1 and user 2 with the same values, as you can see. So I'm only missing the feedback to the user for preventing this to happen, right? Let's assume that if everything goes well and I am able to create this user, I will go back to the login page or login screen, right? So how do I do that? I can reuse kind of this code, just hide all the sections and then fade in the section with ID main. Okay? So this can work a little bit as a feedback to the user, telling him that the user was successfully created. Okay? Let me refresh this. I go to create account. Let's create one with letters B. And then I click here. And as you can see, I'm not going back anywhere. Why? Main. It's not main. It's login. Okay? So main doesn't exist at all. Login. Let's create yet another one with letter Z. Z. Then I create that and I go to login. So right now I have 4 users, right? 2 with letter A. Number 3 should be letter B, and number 4 should be letter C. Okay? But as you can see, it's kind of working. The problem is that we are still not validating this, right? That we can still have 2 users with the same username. That shouldn't happen in reality. You can validate that later on. Okay? Okay, so that's for the creating users. Now if you click the login button, you have to check for a match there. And if you find a match, then it's a successful login and you move to the next page. And the next page is a different page. It's this one, right? Main.html. So first, we have to look through all the users, checking each time their username and password and comparing that to what the user typed in here. And if we find a match, then it's a successful login, okay? So let's loop through all the users out there with a for cycle. var I equals 1 while I is less or equal than what? Than the total of users. Where do we have the total of users? We have them on this variable, right? On the local storage. So we can read it. Store get dot user, right? And then just increase the variable. Okay? Then let's read the user locally. I will name it u as user. Store get user hyphen I, right? Because this will first point to user 1, then to user 2, then to user 3 on each time we enter this for loop. Okay? You can print that if you want to in the console. This is the stored object. Okay? So let's print that out. That means whenever I click here, I am printing object by object. So this is user 1, this is user 2, this is user 3, this is user 4. Okay? So I already have that on the variable u. What I need to check instead of printing it is checking for the match in the password and username combination. So if the username is equal to the one that the user typed here, so what's that input? I have to check it out here. In the login page is this one, right? So it has an ID of username. Okay? So if the stored username is equal to the something, look for something with the ID username val, and what? The passwords also match. So I have a password. As you can see, I have that on the object here. Is this one here?
But
okay.
That doesn't mean that the username have to be the same that the password. That easy.
Right now, yes, but I still have to change this one, right? So I have another field there, which is the password. It has an ID PWD, so that's the one I need to read here. Okay? So if this happens, that means we have a match. Okay? If later on I finish this for cycle and I never found a match, that means that's a wrong username or password, or that username or password does not exist on my local storage. Okay? So if I get here, that means not match found. Okay? No match found. If I do find a match, I want to log in. And by login, I mean, as you can see here, I have a variable named logged in user that anytime I open this web page, I set it to null, like erasing it or something like that. You could erase it in local storage with store.remove, right? Or it's the same as set. You can set this as null as well, okay? So I want to save in that variable the user that has successfully logged in, okay? So it's called logged in user. So I want to store it, store.set logged in user, and I can store maybe the username right there, okay? So we have the username. So I can grab either this one, I can also grab this one. They are both the same in this case, right? So I just store a logged in user and then go to main page. Okay, and I can change web pages with plain JavaScript just by calling the window object, location, href, and pointing that to a different page. In this case, main.html. This will update the URL, okay, and navigate to another page. Okay?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, this is just JavaScript, it's not jQuery. I have the window object, the location property, and the href property. And if I change the href property of the window, that's equivalent to changing this, right? To change the URL, or which is the same to navigate to another web page. And as I already have that main page there, as you can see it, this will it's like clicking on a link if you want to, okay? I just want to go to that page if I did found a match. So I just store the logged in user and I move to that page. If I don't, and I will also add a break here just to break this for cycle. I think I won't get to this break anyway because I'm changing the window. We can check that later on. But if I never find a match, and I already loop through all the users, then I will get here, right? And I just want to show some feedback to the users that says maybe wrong password or that user does not exist or something like that. I already have some span for holding that text, which I called login error, which is hidden by default. When you open that page on the CSS, it has a display none property, okay? So I just want to put some text here, right? And show this span altogether. So let's put some text there. So look for something with the class that and change the, for example, HTML, wrong username or password. And then let's just fade that in. Otherwise, I won't be able to see it. Fade in. That's it. I will save this, refresh this. So if I click here, you can, I don't know if you can see it. I don't want to zoom in because if I zoom in on the screen flow, it looks super awful. So I will just leave it like that, but hopefully you can see that wrong username password. And if I want to hide that later on, I can add a delay of, let's say, 600 milliseconds, and then just fade out that. So now you will see that for a little bit of time, and then it will automatically hide out. Okay? And that looks better, I think. And if I do have a match, if I type here AA, because if you remember, I have a user with that. Now we have a problem because we shouldn't have two users with the same username because it will always be logging the first user in, right? This user 2 will never be able to log in because when we check the combination AA, we find a match on the first user and then we log in with that user and we never got to check the second user, right? That's why we shouldn't have two users' name. But remember, we can always store clear, remove everything, and then I'm going to create just one user, AAA. I am going to create another user named BBBB, and then I can log in with either of those. So if I click AA and I click login, you can see I'm already on the main page, and if you inspect the logged in user, you are logged in as an A. And I am also displaying that on this small menu here, user A, so you can check it out, okay? If I log out, I only get to this place and I log in with the user B. I'm also correctly logged in, and the logged in user value is B. Okay? So with that short piece of code, you are able to have multiple users and already you are able to log them in successfully. Okay? So let's move to the next page, which is the main page. And on the main page, I have 3 screens. Okay, let me show them to you. I already did, but let me show them again. So this is the first screen where you display all the sprinklers the user has. Okay, then you get to see the details of one of the sprinklers. If you click on them, you go to another page. Okay, you can go back, and there's a third screen that allows you to add a new sprinkler. So add new sprinkler takes you to this third screen. So in this main page, I have 3 sections, as you can see here. Section 1 that is with an ID main, which is the first one that just shows you the sprinklers. So if I log in, I am seeing this H3 that says my sprinklers is this one. And then I don't have any sprinklers there yet for this user, but I have a button to add new sprinklers, which is this one, okay? Then I have the other section that adds the sprinklers, and I have a third section for the sprinkler details, okay? So if I click here on this button, that means I'm clicking on this button here. I want to go to this section, and I already have that piece of code here. Yes, because as you can see, I'm using the same technique I used on the first place. I have the change section class with a data goto. So whenever I click on this, it will hide all the sections, and then it will show the one with an ID add a sprinkler, which is this one. Okay, so that code is here. Okay. Anytime I click on something with the class change section, it will hide all the sections. Wait a little bit, and then show the section that corresponds with the ID read from that link, from the data go to of that link, of that item. Okay? So this is just moving. And the cancel button, as you can see, well, it will hide this section and show the first one. That's all it does. Okay? So I should have a cancel button in the add sprinkler, which is this one, that also has the change section class. And in the data go to, I have main, because it will take me or show the main page. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay? So let's add a new sprinkler, because that's the nice thing to do. Okay? So in here, let me just try to increase this a little bit. We have some divs with the sprinkler class. Can be either A, B, or C. We are giving feedback to the user for changing that selection. Not yet. Okay? So if I click here, I don't know if you can see it on the projector, but there's a kind of a shadow there to show that this one is selected. And if I click on this one, I should change that shadow to this one, right? So let's check that out. Those divs are this one. I have a class sprinkler type, and then inside there I have some divs with a display inline block to make them kind of float or be there side by side. Okay? And then I have some classes, and let me talk a little bit about these classes, because that helps me to display one of these icons. And I did this by using sprites. Okay? So this is my sprite. Let me show it so you can see it better. I will just add something like this, and I will hide this and this. Okay. So this is the sprite. Okay. As you can see, we have sprinkler type A, either on or off, sprinkler type B and type C, with either on or off. Okay. And on the CSS, if you inspect that for a second, in the styles main, you should have something like those types somewhere there, here. Okay. So they all have the class type. Let me just keep that here. They all, no, I want to change the main. I will also just type something. Okay, they are all of class type. No, not yet. But there should be. Otherwise, I won't be able to see this type. Okay, this is another one. So I should have that already there in another. Okay, so here. Okay, so either type A, B, or C. All of them point to the same sprite. Okay, now I am changing the size of the sprite because the size of this image, as you can see, is 300 times 200. That means every square is 100 pixels on each side. Okay, but as you can see here, this is a little bit, this is responsive. So if you look this on a cell phone, which is this size or this size or this size, the sprinklers or the containers are also changing size. So how do I match the sprite size to the container? By using percentages. If I set the size to be 300 times 200 size of the container, that means I have kind of a block there. I have this is the viewport of that sprite, and the background is 3 times that width and 2 times that height. Okay, that's what this says. Okay, then I'm just able to move the background position by using percentages. If I want to show this part, okay, I just move it 100% to the right, 0 in the y-axis. If I move it 200%, this is 0%, 100%, 200%. That means I will be seeing this part. Okay, and if I then move it to display the on or off position, I have the class on or off on each type of the container. Okay, and the off position, as you can see, move the y-axis by 100. Okay, so that means I will be seeing one of these one if it's off, and if it's on, I am always on the 0% on the y-axis, meaning I will be seeing one of these. Oh, sorry. one of these ones here. Okay? So that's what I did for the styles. If you go there and check this out, you will see that it has a type A. If I also add, for example, off, this will display that part of the sprite. If I change type A for type B, it will be other part of the sprite that I'm looking at. Okay? So I'm just playing with the classes, and based on those classes, I am moving the sprite's position. Okay? That's pretty much it. So let's get right back here. So we want to listen to the click on either of these and change that selected class to the clicked one, right? Just as we did many times with other examples. So this is a class sprinkler type, and inside there it has divs, so we can listen to the click on divs that live inside a div with class sprinkler type. We already have that here. So sprinkler type div, okay? We can check that by printing something on the console. So as you can see, as I am clicking here, I am getting that text there, okay? And what I want to do is remove the selected class from all of them. So select all of them and remove class selected, and then just add it to the one I clicked on. And the one I clicked on can be inspected with the this attribute, and I want to add the class selected. Okay? So now if I click on add new sprinkler and I click here, I am changing, I don't know if you can see it on the projector, but I am kind of changing the background, the box shadow of the item. Okay, that's what the selected class has. If you inspect that selected class, you will see that the selected has a box shadow, which is that one. Okay, and it also has a transition for making that change animated. Okay, so far so good. I'm able to change the type. I am able to write something on the location, so I should be ready to add the sprinkler, okay? Because I want to save the type of the sprinkler, the location of the sprinkler, and also the owner, no? We said we want to know who's the owner of each sprinkler, right? In order to display the corresponding sprinklers to each user, okay? So how do we do all that? Whenever we add a new sprinkler, we have the information, and we have this button that says add new sprinkler, and here we have the listener for adding new sprinklers. Okay, so what do we do? Well, first of all, we should validate. Yeah, we should validate that at least the user did type something in here, because we don't have to validate this selection because by default we have the type A selected. Okay, but we do have to validate if the user did wrote something in here. Okay, I will skip that validation to do. Okay, and then let's add the new sprinkler. So as we always did, we should check first that variable if it exists or not. Remember, just as we did with the total users, right? So you could do something like if store.get dot sprinklers, it's equal null. That means it hasn't been created yet, so I create it, right? And I have a mistake here. This is a good cue. These curly braces should end right here, okay? But if I open it and click enter, and as you can see, it's not closing where it should. That means that's a hint that I have an error, okay? And the error I have is that I forgot to close this parenthesis, okay? As you can see, that's why it's red right now, okay? So if I close it and I open my curly braces and hit enter, now it's closing on the right indentation, okay? So that's a good hint for you whenever you mistype something or forgot to close something, okay? So if it doesn't exist, I just create it, right? Dot sprinklers, and I will give it a value of 0 because there are no sprinklers yet, okay? So now if I want to add a new sprinkler, I should increase dot sprinklers, right? How do I do that? Store.set .sprinklers, and the value should be store.get, so read the value, sprinklers, and increase it by 1. Okay, so I have now in .sprinklers, I have a number. Now I'm able to create the sprinkler 1 or 2 or 3, okay? Just as we did with the user, something pretty similar, okay? Store.set, sprinkler, and I need to add what? The value I have here, right? In .sprinklers, that could be a 1 or 2 or 3, then a comma, some curly braces for adding the values or the characteristic of that sprinkler. We want to know the owner, we want to know the type, the location, the status, that could be either on or off, to turn it on or off, and I will also have the enabled to delete it later on, and we will talk about this enable in a minute, okay? So the owner, who's the owner of this sprinkler? The user that it's logged in, right? In this case, it could be user A or B or whatever. So, and we have that information. Where do we have it? We have it here on the logged in user, right? And as you can see, I am making a very basic checking for a login. That means if I first open this main web page without logging in, this logged in value will be null, okay? So I will just go back to the index page. Of course, this is not safe, and you shouldn't use this as a safe way of validating users, but for our prototype, it works quite well, okay? But the important thing is that in logged in user, we have the username of the logged in user, and that should be the owner of that sprinkler that we are adding, right? So we just specified it here, then we need a comma. The type, how do we know the type? Well, the type is related to these images, right? So whenever I click on this one, it should be type B, this should be type C, and this should be type A. So look at here. I am creating a global variable named sType with a string A by default. Why by default A? Because by default, this is the one that is selected, okay? So if I will create that sprinkler, it should be type A. So I have that already on this variable. But whenever I change the type, I should also update this value, right? And as you can see here on the divs, I have a data T with the corresponding type, okay? So I should just read that as well whenever I am changing this, okay? So I also need to update the sType variable, something like sType now is the div you click and read the data T, right? That's what I name it here, right? Data T. So it could be either A, B, or C, and I'm just updating the value of that sType. So on the global variable sType, I have the type of the sprinkler that I want to add. So I just use it here, sType. Okay? Then the location, we just read the location from this input, okay? This input is here, is this one. It has an ID of location, so we can use that ID and read. Look for something with ID location and read its value. Right? Comma. Then the status. The status will be hard-coded off by default, so every sprinkler I add will be off at the beginning, then I can turn it on later on. And then enable will be true. This is just a boolean, and we will use this later on. Okay, I'm missing a comma here. And that's pretty much it. So I should be able to add sprinklers right now. Let's try that out. Let's go here, refresh. That means if I refresh, I already should have a store get.sprinklers, right? And here I have a mistake because this get should end here, equals null, and I'm missing something like this, right? We'll refresh this. That means this should already has a value of 0. That's good, okay? That means I can create my new sprinkler. So I will just name this type A and click here, and again I'm missing the feedback because I am creating the sprinkler, but I'm not giving any feedback to the user, okay? But if you check this, my sprinklers are already 1. That means I should be able to watch for sprinkler 1. And I do. It has the correct owner, which is B, which is the user which I'm logged in, with which I'm logged in. The correct type, the location is what I wrote here, and status enough. And if I select another one, for example, type B, and I click add a sprinkler, it's working. I'm not giving any feedback to the user. That's very important. But if I check the total sprinklers, I now have 2 of them. That means I should have a sprinkler number 2, which has a type B, because it's the one that I selected. Okay? Let's add a type C. So dot sprinkler 3, that's okay, and sprinkler 3 is type C. So it's working, okay? And then if I log out, and I log in with user A, and I add a new sprinkler, and I will also name it type A, will it work or not? Yes, it works. Now how many sprinklers do I have? 4, right? 3 from user B and 1 from user A. If I inspect the sprinkler 4, the owner is A. Okay, that's okay. And if I inspect number 3, the owner is user B. Okay? So after adding a sprinkler, probably I would like to go back to this screen and just show all the... here I have a CSS problem, but it doesn't really matter. And I will like to show all the sprinklers to the user, because this user B, or sorry, this user A already has a sprinkler, which is this one, but I'm still not able to see it here, even though that it exists, okay? So probably the next thing I want to do after adding a new sprinkler is something like go back to main page or main screen and display the sprinklers, right? How do I go back to the page? Well, you already know you can use something like this piece of code. Okay, and I want to go to main. But I also want to display the sprinklers for that users. And I could have wrote that here, but as I probably want to display the sprinklers many times, for example, when I add a new one, when I go to the details of one and turn it on and off and then go back to the main page, I also want to redisplay the sprinklers. When I delete one and I go back to the main page, I also want to redisplay the sprinklers. So there are many times in which I want to display them. That's why I created this function, or I am creating this function display sprinklers, which should just display the sprinklers here inside this container that I have. I have this container, right? And I have this template already. So I just need to force cycle through all the sprinklers and add those sprinklers here. But should I add all the sprinklers? No, only the ones that match the logged in owner. Okay, because right now I have 4 sprinklers, right? Number 4 is from user A, and 1, 2, and 3 are from user B. As I'm logged in as user A, I will expect to only see this sprinkler and not the other 3. Okay? So how do I accomplish that? Well, let's write the display sprinklers. And as you can see, I am calling that function as soon as I open that page, because as soon as I open the main page, I would like to see the sprinklers for that user. Okay? So how do we add it? We have a container, which is this one. This has the ID sprinklers container. So first let's just empty it in case it has something in it. So look for something with the class. Was it a class? No, it's an ID. How do I erase everything? Empty. Then I need a force cycle. Something like, well, I will write it here. Bar I equals 9, while I is less or equal than store.get.sprinklers, right? And then I plus plus. Then look for this thing. Well, let's just var S for sprinkler, store get sprinkler hyphen I, right? This will get all of the sprinklers. Let's write it on the console to check if that works. Console log S. This should print on the console the 4 sprinkler objects, okay? And as we are calling that as soon as we open the page, I just need to refresh the web page, and I have a mistake on line 151, which is here. Yeah, this should be a semicolon, okay? So as you can see, I am displaying the 4 sprinklers that I have, okay? Of course, I don't want to display them on the console, but I just wanted to show you that on this temporary variable, which is an object, I have the information of each sprinkler each time I enter this for cycle. Okay? Now if I want to append it, I just need to call this container, call the append function. Remember the grave accents we used for being able to give some enters here and write some stuff. And I'm going to use this template that I previously created. Just copy it and paste it here. Let me move this a little bit. So this will, as I have 4 objects, right now this will add this 4 times to the container, right? And it has hard-coded information, as you can see here. So if I just refresh this, now I'm able to see that 4 times, okay? Of course, I don't want to have this as hard-coded information, okay? Anytime I enter here, I have on the S the object. Remember, we printed on the console. So for the first one, which is this one, I would like to have this type A location in here, right? And the image should also be type A, and it should be off. So I should also read the status, which is off, meaning this should be off, right? So we just need to inject some code here. And that's the magic of the grave accent that allows us to inject some JavaScript code right here. So in the location, remember we have the object S, right? So we can grab any property of that object, for example, the location. I'm just printing on the console right now. So instead of printing all this, I'm just going to print the location of each of them. So A, B, C, and A again. Okay? I could also print the, I don't know, the owner, which is B3 for the first 3 and then A. Or I could print, I don't know, whenever you want, the status, which is off for all of them. So you can access with the dot attribute all the information in there, okay? I will just print that out. So in the location, I want to inject s.location, right? So if I refresh it, now I have the correct locations there. I don't know if you can see it. I hope you do, okay? Now for the type, as well as type, I want to have type A or type B or type C, okay? So I just need to add here inject. Look at the hyphen. Why do I need that hyphen? Because on the styles, that's what I use, right? I use type A or type B or type C, okay? So here, type hyphen, and here I should inject something. What do I need to inject? Let me just print that one more time. I need to inject the type, right, of the object. So type, and then just inject s.type. And that works, that should work. Type. If it doesn't work, let me check what it's doing. It should be already type something. Yeah, type B. We have this, type B. Okay, on the type alone, I have the size of that thing, right? Somewhere there. Yeah, I have the size. So I'm missing this type. So they should be, or this one should be both type and type A or B or C. So type and also type A, B, or C. Okay? So now as you can see, this is type B and this is type C, and you are seeing the right stuff there. I also want to add either an on or off. For example, if I hardcode an off here, all of them will be off. Okay? But I don't want that hard-coded. I want to read that from the object. Okay? So inject s.status, which right now it's off for all of them. Okay? So I won't see any changes, because if you inspect that, you are getting the type B and then the off as well, because all of them have the status off. Okay? What else do I need? Okay, there's one thing I'm still missing, and let me show it to you in the next screen. So right now, and the problem also is that I'm showing 4 sprinklers, but this user A should only have 3 sprinklers, right? No, just one, this one. Why is this happening?
Because I'm not checking the owner.
Exactly. So you are entering the for cycle and add it by brute force all of them. It doesn't really matter who's the owner. I am going to add them anyway. Okay. So I still have to check the owner, and that's pretty easy to do. If s.owner is the same as the logged in owner or the logged in user, then add that sprinkler, because it's from that owner. Okay. Where do I have the logged in user? I have it here, right? So I can just check that here. And if that's true, then yeah, I should move this inside this if. Okay, bless you. So now, as you can see, I'm just seeing the last one, which is from user A. And if I log out and log in as user B, I will be presented with the 3rd sprinklers that are from user B. Okay? So now I have multi-users and also multi-sprinklers for each user. Okay? So that's working okay. I will just hide this from the console to make this more clear. And then what I'm still missing is that I should be able to click on this and go to the details of that sprinkler. Okay? Such as you can see here. If you watch this and you click on any of them, I would like to see those attributes. Okay? How do I do this? Well, I should listen to the click on what? Maybe on something with the class sprinkler could do. Okay? But remember that these are being dynamically added to the page. Okay? They don't exist on the page at all. In fact, at the beginning, the container is empty. Okay? So as they are dynamically added, if I want to listen to the click on any of them, I need to add a dynamic event listener. Okay? Remember how did we do that last class? It's here. So instead of using the selector, the sprinkler, as it doesn't exist at the beginning, we use another wrapper that does exist, and we inject that selector here. This code means whenever something with the class sprinkler is added to the body, also attach this event listener to it. Okay? At any time, at the time that it was added, it will as well add this event listener to it. Yes? We can check that. Yes. Here by just printing something on the console. And as you can see, it's working. If I just do the normal way, such as we did before, something like this, okay, it will try to add the listener at the beginning when we do not have them, and if I click on it, I'm clicking on it and nothing is happening. Okay? So we need to add it in a dynamic way, such as this way, and that way it works. Okay? So what do we want to do? Go to the details page. So something like this, we already know it works. This will hide all the sections, and then we want to show the last section, which is sprinkler details. Okay? So just go there and here, sprinkler details. So now if I click here, it will hide and go to sprinkler details. This will go back. If I click on this one, all of them work. The problem is that we don't know yet which sprinkler we selected because we haven't done it. Okay? Before going to that one, we should save the save the info about the selected sprinkler, right? So probably it will also be a good idea to, apart from adding this class, why don't we add a data attribute with the ID of this sprinkler? What do I mean by ID? Well, we could set that the ID of a sprinkler is this, right? Sprinkler 1 or 2 or 3, that could be the ID of the sprinkler, okay? And as we have that on, remember we are on a cycle, so I could add data ID, something like sprinkler hyphen, and then just inject the value of that I, okay? How do I inject it? $, curly braces, and the variable. So now, if you inspect this, this has, I don't know if you can see it, they have a data ID with the correct sprinkler ID, okay? And if you log in as the A user, sorry, that only has one, but you inspect that, it has the correct sprinkler ID, right? So if you click on it and you go to the next page, you could retrieve the information for that sprinkler in order to display it here, okay? Because we want to display the correct information here.
Like if it was the user.
Yeah, like some more or less like for what we did with the user, okay? So before going there, we could add var s and get that sprinkler, right? Store.get. Remember, we have on the clicked one, we have a data that we just created with an ID. I know this looks super. I just try to write everything on one line. I mean, you can do this on 2 or 3 lines and maybe it's clearer to read. We are just grabbing the object from the local storage, and the object we want to read is either sprinkler 1 or 2 or 3, right? And we have that information where? On the data ID attribute of the clicked element, because we create that here. Okay?
I don't have to put the ID.
This is the ID goes here. Okay? So that means the item you click should have a data attribute that says something like data-ID. And we do. Here it is, data-ID. The value is the string sprinkler hyphen concatenated with the value of the id on this cycle. That will be 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the one you are adding. Bless you. Okay? So we have that here. So fill the info. Okay? Which info we want to fill? Well, the info for the details, this information. For example, let's fill the location. The location, we have it inside this H4 that has a class of sprinkler details location. So inside here, I want to put the location of the selected sprinkler, right? So sprinkler location. So here, look for something with the class sprinkler location and edit the HTML with the s.location. Location. Okay, so this should work. That means the location is type A, so if I click here, I should see type A there, and it's working. Let's go with the other user, which was user B. Okay, so if I click here, I should see a type A on the location. If I go back and click here, I get to see a type B, so it's working. Here, I should see what? Well, the type of the sprinkler and the status, okay? Because as you can see, if I add here a type A, for example, should be, class type A. Now I'm able to see that image. If I also add the class of, I will see that of, okay? So I just need to add that on the correct div. So that div is on the details is this one, right? So I want to add that class. So it's a div that lives inside the class sprinkler type, So you could do something like, where here? Look for something with the class Sprinkler type, and the div inside it, add the class, what? S dot, it's a type, right? Type hyphen plus type. Okay, so now I have also the type. So if I click here, this should be type A. The problem is that it's on and it should be off, right? As you can see, the type is correct, but the status is incorrect still. So this is type B, it will show type B. And the problem is that, as you can see, this now says type A and type B, and that's a problem, right? That shouldn't be the case, because it should be just one type, okay? So instead of, or apart from adding the classes, I also, if I went back and then click in another one, now this will be type A, B, and C. So I first need to remove whatever class I had there and then add the corresponding class. So before adding the class, remove class. Which one? All of them or any of them. So remove class, and if you write remove class without any parameters here, it will remove all the classes from that div. So now instead of having A, B, C, if I click A, you have A, that's okay. And if I click B, you should only have B, and it's working quite okay. And if you go back and click C, you are only type C. Then you also want to add the class what? The status, right? Which I have on status. Status. So either on or off. As all of them are off, if I go there, I should see it off. Now it's working okay. This should be type B off. Okay, type B off. It's okay. And the last one is type Z off. Type Z off. It's working okay. Okay. Now let me try to change this clicking element. This should turn this on and update the value for that sprinkler, right? It shouldn't be off anymore, it should be on. Okay? So how do I do that? Well, this is just a checkbox with an ID sprinkler status. I already have the listener to it. It's working, as you can see. Let me just print something there. It's working. Okay. We want to know, as we click on it, which is an input, we should add the data SID to know also, to know which sprinkler we want to update. Okay. So we have that here. Sprinkler type ID sprinkler status. So something like status. And we want to change the attribute data SID, and the value should be the sprinkler name, which is the ID of the sprinkler, right? Something like this. So what I'm trying to do is update this value based on the one I clicked on. So if I click here and it's not working, that it's the way you update a data attribute is by changing the attribute. I think that's the correct way. Just let me check it here. Main brackets. So in the update, no, here, I'm still missing the clicking. Type, attribute data. Yeah, data SID should work. So sprinkler type, sprinkler status. That's what I have there, right? Sprinkler type. No. So just look for the sprinkler status. Probably that will work better. Yes. As you can see, I'm now updating the data SID with the selected sprinkler. Okay. And if I go and select another one, for example this one, I'm updating also that one. That way, whenever I click this checkbox, I can read the data attribute SID and update that sprinkler. Okay? So I will finish with that. If I click this, I know which one I'm using, right? If you look for this data SID, you should get the sprinkler. This is sprinkler 1, right? If I click here, you will see sprinkler 1. If you go to the number 2 and you click here, you get the sprinkler 2. No, it's sprinkler 1. Why? So something but it should work. This sprinkler 2. Whenever I click on this one, okay, the problem is that I am adding this when it gets added, and then I am changing this data attribute. So probably I should update this on some other way. As the class is going to finish right now, I will stop the video and hopefully I finish this faster with the next group. So just look for the final part of the other video, which will be in Spanish. But look for the last part, which is just trying to pass that value here into this click button and updating the value from the sprinkler accordingly, right? So I'm trying to change, I will try to change this status to either on and off, also change the sprite position accordingly, and then when I go back, I should still be seeing that either on or off accordingly.